like my tail?
Welcome back to Iron Rage, the show where Lee Priest and I vent our frustrations with the world. Lee, welcome back. I know that I noticed you don't have any costumes on today.
No, I'm feeling a bit sick today, Dave, because the last 2 days I haven't eaten. I've been in bed with hot and cold flushes, and whatever I eat goes through me because you have those beautiful people that come to the gym and they all over you while they're talking to you, and they say, oh, I should have stayed at home. I'm not feeling well. I think I've got some sort of bug. And it's like, well, thanks for sharing, people. So.
my ex-wife called them hackers. You got to stay away from the hackers.
Yeah, it's like, why do they bother coming to the gym when they're that sick? And then they actually tell you they shouldn't have come to the gym. Why they're all over you? Yeah. It's like, yeah.
I think a lot of people would say that Lee's lying, that he's shooting too much gear. He's got he's got the serum sickness going on from all the steroid flu.
Actually, I never even had that. The only time I ever had that, I think, was once a long time ago when I shot Trenbolone really quick and I went, you know, like that, and your fucking chest went super tight and you can't breathe, and I'm standing thinking, this is the fucking end. I got a needle in my shoulder. I'm going to be found laying on the floor.
You never got like that steroid flu where you would be like, you had a fever and it were achy or anything like that?
I never really got that. The only time I would get that, sometimes I get the hotness, and that was when I'd use Stanozol, because, you know, being water-based and shit. Yeah. If I put it in my shoulder, it'd get a bit swollen, then you'd have this big red fucking mark come around it. Then I'd feel like hot and shit, but nah, generally been okay. But that's why I don't know why people use Tren, because it's fucking terrible.
Yeah, I don't know. I never had a problem with Tren. I always had a Winstrol, though. You could definitely have problems. It's, test suspension. Milos Sharshev and I were talking about back in the 90s, guys would take a 1 cc of suspension, right, the night before the show?
Yeah. I used to stop all that shit at least a week and a half out. I figure I'm not going to lose any fucking muscle size. And like you just said, you see these guys that take it up and do the show, and some days at the show they'd have that big fucking lump on them still, and it looked like it was all inflamed and smooth. Yeah. But I think 1 year I had some Stanozol, like Winstrol. I think I probably put more down the sink than I actually put into my body, because I just get the shits. You know, you'd be putting it in and it's like, then it just stops and you're like,
it would clog the syringe all the time. Yeah.
So, you know, I'd take it out and try again. Then after the 30, I'm just like, boof, down the sink, fuck it.
You see, what you had to do is you had to draw up some vitamin B12, injectable B12 with it to water it down, and then you shake it up.
I used to do that a bit
like
too,
a milkshake.
Then I just got the shits. Just squeeze it down the sink. I thought, fuck it, ain't worth it. So, there's probably some big fish swimming out at sea.
I probably know there's probably plenty of bodybuilders that would gladly have drunk your syringe full of Winstrol if you would have squirted it down their throat.
I said there's some shredded fish in the ocean now as it went out to sea, or that Stanozol.
Now, you know, interestingly, FOUAD ABIAD had his radio show, or I guess his radio TV show on his YouTube channel the other day, and he had obviously Luke Sandoe as his co-host on that show, and they actually mentioned you. I think Luke mentioned you as the 90s tattoo-faced bodybuilder, right?
I think so. I think someone said that he said the blonde-haired guy with tattoos on his face.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I think he's talking about Mike Tyson. Not me. So.
They were basically saying that, you know, you were complaining too much about how the 90s bodybuilders were shredded, and they really weren't that shredded. They weren't more shredded than the guys today. It's camera angles and pictures from magazines.
Well, pictures don't lie. Did someone, I think in one of it he said, because there's so many photographers out there now getting them from every angle and blah, blah, blah. Well, that was still the same back in when I was competing with Ronnie. I don't know how many times they got Ronnie's stomach from every angle, so there was always cameras around. Okay, sure, when it goes in the magazines, they can make it look pretty, but same with the internet now when they put things online. You know, they touch photos up. It's easier to Photoshop now than it was back then. So
you just put filters on it now.
We're not saying everyone was ripped back then, but when you look at a Mr. O lineup from back then, and I said it before, he's trying to act like I'm putting the guys down today. I've always said I respect the guys today and this and that. Look at the press conference for one. Everyone's face sunken in. The top 10 pretty much were all in the same condition, where the last few Olympias, after the top 4 or so guys, yes, the other guys are still in shape, but they're not in that type of shape where they're all pretty dry and stuff like that. And I know he said Lee wasn't shredded or ripped in every show, but I was in shape at every show. He's going to judge.
They said you were only ripped in one show when you won the Ironman.
Well, the funny thing is, I was actually more ripped in 2002 when I weighed 199 pounds when I won to San Francisco. So
that's true. You probably were.
He needs to go back a few more years. He might have still been in diapers then when I was competing.
Yeah, I think that's beyond his. He was probably too young to even remember that. You know what? I say to this. You know, you're right. And Steve Weinberger was on the TV show this past week, and he said the same thing. He said the guys just weren't in shape, and so only the top 3 guys were really in shape.
Yeah.
You know,
but if I say that, I'm just like an angry old bodybuilder. But you know, Steve, who's a head judge that's been in the sport for how many years, if he says it, FOUAD would probably go, yes, I agree with Steve. Steve knows what he's talking about. It's like, whatever. It's like.
Look, I remember that 98
Anyway, you know,
Olympia.
FOUAD's a good competitor and stuff, but what's he done lately? Come on. He's done as much lately as I have.
We never saw Dorian out of shape. We never saw Sean Ray out of shape, right? Ever.
No.
Levroni was always usually in the best shape. Flex
even when Ronnie was even had his distended stomach, he was still in shape.
Oh, he was
Ronnie.
still shredded. Yeah.
I think Flex maybe a couple of times when he played that size game came in that little bit watery and stuff, but he still did okay. But I think the time I was mostly out of shape was 2000 and the time I had the long hair, whenever that was, I just didn't want to do the show.
Yeah.
And I admit to that, I was at McDonald's still getting ready for that show. So it was just like, but you know, I was always in the best I could be at the time. But you know, you see guys, and everyone said it's not just us, how guys are either eating up too much or carving up too much, relying on insulin, who knows? But you can just see it when you see guys like, I remember, you know, Brandon looked great and he won the Olympia, but there's photos of Brandon 2 days before the Olympia in a tank top. And to me, when you looked at him, he looked like he was still weeks out. When you'd see the guys from the old days, 2 days from a show, there was veins, there was definition, there was striations whenever they moved their body. So, okay, I guess it's just my old eyes with the old camera angles looking at it. So.
Cormier was always in shape.
How do you know they're talking about me? Just because I said blonde hair and a tattoo on his face, and then later on...
You're the only one with a tattoo on their face, Lee.
That's Mike Tyson, I'm telling you. Look, just because they say... The funny thing was, though, he didn't want to say my name. He goes, the blonde hair with a tattoo on his face, but then a bit later on he goes, well, he's only in shape once, and that goes... And then they go, well, Lee Priest was a good bodybuilder.
Yeah, right, exactly. So much for not mentioning you.
Don't tell them a secret.
I think we should have Luke, FOUAD, Lee, you on Iron Debate. That's what we got to do. I have to have an Iron Debate next week.
How about you just have FOUAD and that debate Steve Weinberger? Then if they don't want to take my word for it, then if Steve's saying the guys weren't all in great shape, then because he was even saying that if any of those other guys had been in top shape, like if Sean maybe had been there in top shape, taking nothing away from Curry, he could have probably won it, or anyone up there.
I saw pictures of Charles Claremont. You remember Charles Claremont? How shredded he would be? He was hardly the biggest guy, but he was always peeled.
His physique, too, is very similar to Flex's type body, the symmetry and the full muscle bellies and stuff. So.
Aaron Baker. How about Aaron Baker? Was he ever out of shape? Very rarely.
No. Remember that year he came in after the WBF and he didn't make top 10 of the Olympia for punishment?
He was crazy looking.
He should have been top 5.
Yeah, he should have easily.
Yeah.
So
it was very rarely back then you wouldn't see. The thing was, though, back then too, when a lot of the guys were so shredded and dry, like that, how Ronnie would get and Dorian would get, you'd only have to be a tiny bit off, and people would say you're not in shape.
Right.
When really they are. I remember back in the day, I think it was Renel Genevieve was his name, that had the ripped glutes.
Yep.
Yeah, when he came out, he always had the ripped glutes. And one time he did a show and they weren't as ripped, and people were like, "Oh, he's off." But the guy was still shredded just because his glutes weren't as ripped. Oh, he's off. So once you sort of set that standard of being that type of ripped, if you're just a tiny bit, he's off. But yet compared to everybody else, you're the most ripped guy up there.
You had Renel, you had Hamdullah. Remember Hamdullah had the crazy glutes. Yeah. You had Tommy Thorvildsen, who had the striated glutes.
I still like Tommy. He had like the most striated glutes and shit, but he always had the fattest face. Still, always wondered. It was like,
How about Momo Benaziza and Andreas Munzer? I mean, those guys were shredded. I mean,
Yeah.
there was a lot of guys that were super crazy peeled back in the 90s, and that's it. Just what is what it is. It doesn't mean the guys are lazy today. I think guys just want to come in bigger today, and I think sometimes bigger is not better. You know, Steve Weinberg said it. Conditioning wins shows, man, and you know, Bonac blew it really, because if Bonac would have been a little fuller, okay, he probably would have beat Curry because he was harder than he was. He just came in too small, I think, compared to Arnold.
And I've said it before. It's like now because they are coming in bigger and they still look great. And we're not saying they don't look great, but if you had had like someone like the conditioning of Ronnie in '98, or how some of these other guys would come in, if someone comes in condition now, they almost look like a freak because. Right. They're like, wow, look how they talk about the conditioning of why do I always forget his name now? Fuck, I must be sick. I did it last time I was talking to you.
Bonac?
No.
Dexter.
Got third.
Dexter?
No, the one that got third. The one that got third. How can I keep forgetting?
Oh, Hottie's Troopin.
Yeah, Troopin. Like, look at him now. His conditioning. People talk about his conditioning so much because it looks like an anomaly now because he gets, in that such great condition where in the 90s that was almost like the norm. But now you see someone come in with that type of conditioning, it sort of makes you go, wow, look at that, because it's just such a standout from the other conditioned guys on stage. And we're not saying the other guys aren't conditioned, but, if you just go that little bit further and get that little bit more dry, it's just like, bam, it's incredible.
Look at Dexter Jackson. You think the guy's 50 years old, he's placed in top 4 at the Olympia. It's not because he's the biggest guy up there, it's because he's shredded.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
I mean, if you can't get the message from that, then you miss the memo, don't you think?
Exactly. You'd have to go back quite a few years to ever find the show Dexter wasn't shredded in. So.
But isn't that why he does well all the time?
Mm-hmm.
Well, and you know what? It benefited him way better later in his career because nowadays guys are not all shredded. And because guys are not coming in shredded, he's beating people that he should not be beating. And he's beating them because he's better conditioned than them. If Dexter's not the evidence for the statement you made, then I don't know what is.
And could you imagine like Ruli or Rami and all those guys if they came in shredded? It's like, okay, they got the size there. So even when you look back to some of Kai's shows, if Kai had been shredded, he would have had an Olympia title by now. So
I mean, if those guys come in shredded that you just mentioned, I mean, now you're talking about this modern era being better than the 90s because the guys are bigger.
It would be. If those bigger guys come in shredded, no one would be talking about the 90s anymore. So, it's just one of those things.
Yeah. It's crazy when you think about it, though. But, there's always a golden age, and there's always like a little lull in the action. I think guys don't know what to do. I don't think if they don't think, they're always worried about fuller. And you know what happens? If you try to come in full, a lot of times what happens is guys stop dieting before they get in shape. You can't fill yourself up if you still have body fat in you. It just doesn't look good. So you've got to strip all the fat off first, even if that means getting too flat, then fill up with more food and eat up to the show. That's the right way to do it. Today, what happens is guys stop 10% short of where their best conditioning is because they don't want to get too small in their heads, and then they never go beyond that. So they look good, but they don't look detailed enough,
It's true, though. I saw one guy backstage at a show. It was an amateur show here, and he did that. He was so worried about his weight, he didn't, want to lose any more weight.
Yeah.
I see him backstage, and he's eating sugar lollies and this and that. And I heard his friend say, "What's that for?" He's like, "Going to bring the veins out." I'm like, mate, to get those veins out, they got to push through fluid and fat and fucking everything else. It's like those veins aren't coming out from eating sugars. It's like I think you've been eating too much sugar. And like, a lot of people too in the pros. We've mentioned, okay, in the amateurs, when you got to make a weight, you watch your weight a bit more. But in the pros, for some reason, they're so fixed on being bigger and putting more weight on and putting more weight on when it's been proven time and time again. Dexter's done it. Come in shape, and if you got the muscle there and you come in shredded,
you're right.
You can beat these guys. Well, perfect example is when I was competing back in the day. When I won the San Francisco, I weighed 199. Cormier got second. He weighed 260. Normally if Chris is in great shape, I wouldn't beat him, but I come in that shredded, and people said to me, "Lee, what are you weighing?" I said, "What do you think I weighed?" And pretty much every person had me between 230 and 240. That's what they thought I weighed on stage. And when I told him I was 199,
Yeah.
you know, I joke around with Chris and go, "Oh, you got beat by a guy under 200." He's like, "Oh, fuck off."
But did you have trouble back in the day making weight, getting down to your contest weight? Because you would go up to like 270, I remember, in the off season, right?
I never had a problem. Yeah, 285 was my heaviest, but once I started dieting and doing cardio, you know, the first couple of weeks I'd lose about 15, 20 pounds of water just when I cut out my dairy and stuff. So it came off pretty quick. I actually found it easier getting in shape when I was heavy. There was 1 year I only weighed 245, and I went, well, I'm 245. I'm already 30, 40 pounds ahead of the mark that I normally am. So I never got into my cardio as hard. But if I had that weight to lose, I just go blast cardio and training and that. So it came off pretty quick. And I was always ready, how you said there, get ready early and be like really depleted. I'd always be ready about a month out. That way I could just play with stuff, you know, eat a bit more and see how I looked. If I didn't look good, maybe cut something out, add this in. So, and then I started doing a lot of my photo shoots before the contest. I was always flexing and posing leading up to the show. So I was always ready. I always dieted for 16 weeks, but about 12 weeks I was ready, and I was doing that thing. I want the show now to be now. I want the show to be now. And when the show came, I wish I had another week. So, you know, it's all a head game.
Yeah. Well, you know, like I said, I'm copying you now. Now I'm making Lee Priest statements. By the way, everyone wants, like I said, T-shirts. I still haven't made them. I got to do it. I promise I'll do it this week.
I listen to interviews on a lot of different people now, and I heir them say, "Like I said," as Patchy said. I should trademark it quickly.
You better, yeah. I wonder if you could. No.
I think you could. I don't know, because I've got T-shirts that say "Life is a fight," and I've copyrighted that.
Oh. Really? You could copyright anything, I guess, if you want to spend the money. Copywriting is expensive, though. I know in the U.S. it is, at least. So.
Yeah.
Very expensive. What are you drinking there?
It's just one of those infused teas. I think it's like cranberry orange and something.
Ooh, very, very exotic. Is that supposed to help your sickness?
La-di-da. I don't think so. That's making me feel.
You know what? I have to take my hat off to you. I want to thank you. I know you didn't feel good today. You did the show anyway, and you know that just shows that you care about the audience, because the fans, they want to see every week.
It just shows you when I'm sick that I don't think I've actually swore yet, have I?
No, you've been very mellow. You're kind of like hypnotizing me to sleep a little bit. So that's why I'm going to end the show right now. I don't want to bullshit. All right.
Well, fuck off, you cunt.
Yeah. Thank you. I feel better now. I woke up. Let's put the challenge out there to FOUAD and Luke Sandoe. Let's get them on the show. Let's debate 90s bodybuilders versus modern era bodybuilders, and we'll see if we can figure out who wins, and let the fans decide who's right.
Well, I think everyone wins because everyone still looks great. But when we're talking about the in shape and being shredded, I said it could only be a minute thing between guys being great condition. Curry was in great condition, but then we're just talking about that extra bit of level where it's that point where it's just wow, that real dry condition, where you cut out a stone type stuff, where when Curry flexes, he's in great shape, the muscles pop. But there's a lot of guys in the 90s who just stood there relaxed and their muscles popped before they even hit a pose. So
right.
I remember that freak back in the day, Nimrod King. That fucker was so full and hard. Whenever he hit a pose, he just looked like incredible. Even standing there, it looked like he was posing. Everything was just so hard and shredded and stuff. And he was a freak. Crazy.
He used to train with, I think, Lee Haney, didn't he, for a little while?
I think so, yeah.
There's a lot of guys. You're gonna have to compile all your shredded guys from the 90s, because I'm sure Luke and FOUAD will compile their guys from now, and we'll have a battle royale like in the WWE.
Well, it used to be that one picture people would put up. I don't know where it goes, but I'm sure it's on the internet somewhere, where they'd have one of the old Olympia lineups that had Dorian and Nasser and everyone in it. And then it had another Olympia from just a couple of years ago under it, and people would get upset going, well, that's not fair, that's not right.
We're dying to see someone in shape at the Olympia, nowadays. It's to make the show more interesting. But I just think it leaves the door wide open for a newcomer like a Patrick Moore, or someone maybe newer than him even next year, who's going to come in and steal that show. Look, it happened when Dorian showed up. And it happened when Ronnie finally arrived physique-wise. The show is over. That's it. They own that show for 8 years after that. Next year
can easily be open again, because as good as Curry looked, he's not one of those physiques like Dorian or Phil, where if he comes in like that again, he's going to win it. So as you said, if anyone comes in super peeled next year, it's there for the taking again. So
Yeah.
the guys next year should be focused more on conditioning. They got all the size. Look, really, for
Right.
example, really got all the size he needs right now. If he
Yep.
just focuses on conditioning, keeping that size, and works on conditioning, maybe start dieting a little bit earlier, whatever. But if he
Right.
comes in shredded to the bone, it could be his. It could be anyone. Cedric's. It could be anyone that turns up.
Someone please come in shape. That's the take-home message. Dave Palumbo for Lee Priest for another installment of Iron Rage. Get better, Lee.